Hello, this is another tutorial using the EA framework that we've been building up over time. If you've seen some of the earlier tutorials, then I quite often run the examples and explain that I haven't built anything to prevent multiple trades. So when the examples run, they will trade on signal, but then they'll keep trading as each new bar opens. And I get questions quite regularly, how do I prevent that happening? So in today's tutorial, I am going to introduce the ability to limit the number of trades by using the signal classes. I'll be explaining how to write the class to limit the number of trades, and then I'll be writing two expert advisors that trade on a moving average cross and restrict the number of trades that can be placed, just as an example of that. So I'll just roll the disclaimer and we'll be right back with the code. Now I've opened the editor for MQL4, and the first thing to note is that I'm using framework 2.02. The code that I'll be writing in this tutorial will not work with earlier versions of the framework. You can always download the latest version of the framework from our website, and I will include a link to the download in the description below this video. So I'm using version 2.02, and we can see here the framework file is linking to 2.02. This tutorial focuses on limiting the number of trades that can be executed in any direction. And I'm not going to be going through the changes in the framework in detail. I will be releasing another video very soon that explains the changes from framework 2.01 to 2.02. But for now, you can simply go to the website, download framework 2.02, and that will work with the examples in this video. When I do finish the video on the changes to framework 2.02, I will come back here and I will add a link in the description and on screen to that video. To set up a rule that limits the number of trades you can enter on either side, I'm going to actually create a signal. Now, signals typically would indicate when you do trade, where the limit that I'm going to put in place will tell you when not to trade, but the principle is the same, and rather than create an entire class structure just for this, I'm going to create a signal which will be a trade limit signal. Now, you might find it easy to simply copy one of the existing signals. I'm going to begin at the beginning by using the wizard. So I'm calling this signal trade limit just to create the file, but I'm going to delete all of this and start from nothing. Now here's the basis of my signal trade limit file. Updated the comment here for signal trade limit. Here's where I pull in the framework using // because I want to go 2 levels up from where this file is stored, and pull in the framework.mqh file, and my class name csignal trade limit that inherits from csignal base, and I'll get access to csignal base through this framework.mqh file. Next, I need some private member variables. Because this inherits from csignal base, it will already have a symbol. The signal base maintains a symbol, but doesn't have a magic number. And because I want to scan through trades placed by an expert advisor, I need to be looking for a specific magic number. So I've added in a magic number member variable, and now I have 3 limits here. The rule that I'm going to use for this signal trade limit is that you can set the maximum number of buy trades you can have open, you can set the maximum number of sell trades you can have open, and you can also set a total number of trades that can be open. So for example, if you said you can have 2 buy and 2 sell trades, but a total limit of only 3, then as soon as you've got 2 buy and 1 sell open, you can't open another sell. And then the ctrade custom, this is also included in the framework, and I'm just creating a variable of type ctrade custom. I'm calling it trade. This particular class is used to maintain compatibility between MQL4 and MQL5, because inside the framework it then includes different files depending which version of MQL you're using, and attempts to create the same function names. Now I need some constructors. I have no protected member variables. My constructors, as usual, I have a constructor that takes a symbol and another that doesn't. Apart from that, these 2 constructors are the same. So the first one takes a symbol, then takes the magic number, which we'll use to populate this magic number. And then it takes the buy limit, the sell limit, and the total limit, and I'm defaulting those to -1. -1 or any number below 0 is going to be the flag to not use that limit. And then I'm calling the parent class csignal base, passing in the symbol here and the period from the chart. If you use the other constructor that doesn't accept a symbol, then I'm calling the C signal base constructor that doesn't accept any arguments, and that will create a C signal base using the current chart symbol and period. And then in both cases, I'm calling my init method, passing the magic number, the buy limit, the sell limit, and the total limit. And here's the definition for the init method: magic number, buy limit, sell limit, total limit. Now this inherits from C signal base. I need to implement an update signal method. There is one inside C signal base, but it does nothing. So I need to create the specific method here. So I'll just define that. So just update signal. I'm still calling it virtual. The update signal inside C signal base is declared virtual so that I can override it. I don't need to use virtual here, but I do use it just in case in the future I create another class that in turn inherits from C signal trade limit, and I want to further override this. So now let's create the init method. C signal trade limit init. There's a magic number, a buy limit, a sell limit, and total limit. This is a standard test that I include because this will tell me whether the parent class initialization method succeeded. So I'm simply testing if the init result is not equal to succeeded, then I'm going to return that, and effectively that's a fail. Assuming that worked, all I'm doing now is assigning these input variables to the members: magic number, buy, sell, and total limit. And then for the trade object that I created, this type C trade custom trade, I'm also setting the magic number. It has a method called set expert magic number. The reason I'm doing it this way is because this is the way the trade class that is delivered by MetaQuotes for MQL5 operates, and I'm duplicating that into MQL4 as well. So I'm simply passing a magic number into this trade object, and then assuming all of that works, I can just return init succeeded. And then the update signal method is where all of the work happens for this class. Let's create that. So inside update signal, I'm creating an array count, which will tell me how many trades I have open of each type of trade. And then I'm just creating two work variables, buy count and sell count. So then I'm calling a method position count by type. This method is created in framework 2.02. So that's another reason why you need to have that version of the framework. It accepts a symbol and this count array, and it will then populate that array with the number of trades of each of the trade types. It doesn't accept the magic number, and that's why we've set the magic number earlier. So this will still only look through that symbol and this magic number. And once I have that array populated, just to make the rest of the code simple, I'm actually assigning the values into the buy and the sell count variables, taking them from count and using these enums position type buy and position type sell. It's just a little bit more convenient to use these variables inside the rest of the code. Then I'm initializing my result, and I'm saying at the moment, because I haven't executed any of the tests, then it's possible to execute either a buy or a sell trade. So signal both at the moment. First test, are we over the total limit? And as I said, if the total limit or any of the limits are passed in as less than 0, then that means I'm not testing. So my first check is to see if the total limit is greater than or equal to 0, and then I'm testing the total of the trades, buy count plus sell count, and if that's greater than or equal to the total limit, then we can't trade. So OFX signal none. Then I'm testing just to see if we're over each of these individually, because the total limit could be less than 0, or you may have set some other combination such that you can go over the limit on each of these. So first thing, check whether the limits are used, greater than or equal to 0, and then is my buy count greater than the buy limit, and the sell count's greater than the sell limit. So I'm using an and here, I'm not looking at an or, because this condition will tell me that I'm over both limits. And in that case, again, signal none. If I'm not over both limits, then am I over the buy limit? So this is just the same test again, just for the buy limit. And if I am over the buy limit, but I know that I'm not over both, then it must be a sell trade. And the final test, am I over the sell limit? If I'm not over the sell limit, and I know that I'm not over both, then I must be signaling a buy. And of course, if we fall through here and we don't go through any of these, then I'll still have OFX signal both set. And that would mean that I'm under the limit on the total, the buy, and the sell. And then I'm calling the set signal method, which is in the base class. I'm saying I'm going to set the signal for the entry signal to the result, and that should not be result, that should be signal none, because I'm not going to be using this to trigger any exits. So this is only used to limit entries. And this set signal method is also a new method inside the base class that appeared in Framework 2.02. So that completes the signal trade limit class. Let me compile just to make sure there are no errors, none there. Now, if you're familiar with the framework, you will know this, but once I have created a new extension, so anything in these extensions, and I've created a new signal here, I need to run a batch file that's included with the framework to recreate some of the other header files. And to do that, I'll just right click on Frameworks, Open Folder, and it's this make extension mqh.bat file. If I just double click that, it will scan through everything in those extensions folder and create these files, all indicators, all signals, all take profit stop loss, and all extensions, and finished. So I can just close that. And now if I go back and look in the extensions, if I look at all signals.mqh, you can see that it now has the signal trade limit included. So now that I've created the signal, I'm going to create an expert advisor that will show how to use that. I'm here in my framework EA folder, which is where I keep all of the files that I create under this framework. And here are the 3 template files that are supplied with the framework. These have also been updated in version 2.02. So there's the template for version MQ4, for MQ5, and the MQH that contains everything that's common between these two. The first thing I'm going to do is create a folder underneath Framework EA, and then I'm going to copy these templates in and rename them ready to use in my new Expert Advisor. So now I've copied the templates, updated them for the MA crossover single trade, for the MQ4, MQ5, and single trade. In the MQ4 file, all I need to do is include the MA crossover single trade.mqh file, and all the work is done in there because everything here is common between MQ4 and MQ5. For MQ5, I'm also including the same file, but MQ5 has some additional functions. I'm not using them, but they are here, and I've left those inside the MQ5 file. So all the work we need to do now is going to be inside this MA crossover single trade.mqh file. And here it is. First step, include Orchard Frameworks framework.mqh. If I look at the include Orchard Frameworks framework.mqh, that is the file that will bring in the Framework 2.02 or whatever is the latest version framework. Inputs. Now this is a moving average crossover, so I'm going to include a fast and a slow moving average here. So simple inputs, number of periods in the fast and the slow, the method, and the applied price for both. And because I want to demonstrate that this will limit the number of trades that can be taken, I don't want to have an exit criteria that will force me to only have one trade open at a time. I'm going to use a simple take profit and stop loss as a way of exiting. That way, if an earlier trade hasn't reached the take profit or stop loss, then I can demonstrate how I won't open a new trade. So simple input, take profit and stop loss points. I'll make those 1,000 here so that we've got a reasonable chance of not closing those trades. And then the standard inputs are, in my defaults, I typically set the volume to 0.01. This comment will default to the file name, which in this case will be MA crossover single trade.mqh. I put it there because it's convenient. You probably want to modify that to a more realistic comment, and then just a magic number which you should change for each expert advisor. Here's my standard definition. I'm using CExpert base. So far I haven't had any need to create a child class from CExpert base, and the reason I redefine CExpert as CExpert base is because there are other files inside the framework that simply refer to the expert class as CExpert. So by including this line, everything that refers to CExpert will be referring to CExpert base. And then of course I'm declaring a pointer to an object, which I'm calling expert. Now I'll just replace this template line because I have two indicators, a fast indicator and a slow indicator, and I'm using the existing C indicator MA class, which has been built earlier. And now the signals that I have, here's the signal crossover, which we've built in earlier videos, and that's going to be the entry signal. But I've also included the new C signal trade limit. That's my limit signal. You'll see how to use those in a moment. And you'll also see that I've removed the exit signal. I don't need an exit signal. As I said earlier, I'm going to allow these trades to run until they hit the take profit or stop loss. I'm using take profit and stop loss as simple values, so I don't need these classes, which would give me a more complex take profit and stop loss. So I'll just remove this. And because I'm not using the take profit stop loss classes, I don't need these indicators. These are just lines left over in the template. So first step, I'm creating my expert object, new CExpert. And then I'm assigning these simple inputs, so volume, comment, and magic number. Now I'll just replace this placeholder indicator. I have a fast indicator and a slow indicator. They are of type C indicator MA, moving average, and these are the inputs, the fast, periods, methods, and applied price. Now in my signals, first thing I'm going to do is set up my limit signal. And these are the inputs, the magic number, the buy trade limit, the sell trade limit, and the total trade limit. So to begin with, I'm allowing any number of trades in total, although in reality, it can only be a maximum of 2, one for each side. And there are no indicators associated with the limit signal. So that's it for creating my limit signal object. And then I'll just replace these lines from the template. I need to create the MA crossover signal. So it's a new crossover signal, and then I'm adding the two indicators, the fast indicator and the slow indicator. And the crossover signal will trigger when the fast moves across the slow. I have no exit signal, so I can just delete these lines. And also because I have no exit signal, I can delete this line, and I'll just replace this with my two other signals for entry. So here I'm adding two entry signals to the expert. With the changes that I've introduced in Framework 2.02, the expert will look at each of these and will only trade if they both agree. So if my limit signal says no trade, then it won't matter what comes back from the entry signal, nothing will trade. If the limit signal says both, then the expert will trade whatever the entry signal says, because it could be buy or sell. If the limit signal says buy, then it can only trade buy trades regardless of what the entry signal says, and so on. Now I am using fixed take profit and stop loss values, so let's just put those in here. These are the inputs, take profit points and stop loss points. And I'm not using the take profit and stop loss objects, so I can remove these. And the stop loss object, and remove these lines where I assign those to the expert. I perform the initialization method on the expert. I just need to make sure I clean up any of the objects that I created. Everything where I've created an object above, I just need to delete those in the onDinit. And all the rest of this code is just ready to run. So I'll just go to the MQ4 file and I'll compile this just to make sure there are no mistakes. And that's compiled. And let me go now to the chart and run this just to demonstrate. I have the strategy tester running now on MT4. I'm running the single trade. The blue line is the fast moving average and the white is the slow moving average. So let me just run this forward a little. So now the blue line's crossed over the white line in a downward direction, and there's a sell trade open here. Let me run it forward. And now it's crossed above and we have a buy trade. So that was allowed in my rules, that I can have a buy and a sell. And here you can see the blue line's crossed below, but I haven't opened another sell trade. I still only have one sell trade open. And now the sell trade has closed because I reached the stop loss. And now because the blue line's crossed below the white line again, but I don't have another sell trade open, I'm allowed to open another trade. So now I've opened the MQ5 editor, and I have the MA crossover single trade.mq5 here. Because all of the critical code is inside that MQH file, I should be able to just compile this MQ5 file and have it run. So the compile was successful, and inside the framework I've made sure that MQ4 and MQ5 are compatible. So let's go to the MT5 terminal and run the demonstration for MQ5. Now I've opened the strategy tester on MT5. It's already opened a sell trade. I'll just let that run forward a little so that we can see more trades happen. Now the blue line crossed above the white line, so I've got a buy trade opened. And now the fast moving average has crossed below the slow moving average, but I already have a sell trade open, and so the limit class is preventing me from opening a second trade. Now I'm back in MQL4 because everything is the same. I just want to make one more change just to show how the total trade limit works. So here where I said I could have one buy and one sell for an unlimited maximum number of trades, if I change that to 1, then it should only allow me to have one buy or one sell at a time. So when I hit that maximum, it will stop trading. And I'll run my strategy tester again. So now it's executed a sell trade because the fast moving average has moved below the slow moving average. And now the fast moving average has moved above the slow moving average. And in the previous test, it would have executed a buy trade here, but it hasn't executed any trades. And the fast moving average has moved below the slow, and still I only have the one sell trade open. And now that sell trade is closed at a stop loss. So the next time the fast moving average crosses below the slow moving average, I should be able to open another trade. And there it is. So that's the demonstration for today. Remember, this does use the framework. I will leave a link in the description below where you can see all the details of the framework, because that is useful for you if you're going to use it. And some of the classes that I referred to in the example were built in earlier videos in this series, so I will also leave a link to the entire series there. I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, then click the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, click subscribe, and then if you click the bell icon, you'll receive a notification from YouTube the next time we upload one of these videos. So until next time, thank you for watching.